Conversations with Niki is brought to you by studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets. Well, welcome. Time for another conversation. Lovely to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Niki Seberini here, and this is Conversations with Niki. Well, the question that I have to ask you is, can you feel it? The sun is rising earlier, the buds are beginning to open, and the blossoms are in full bloom. I mean, it's glorious, glorious spring. It's time to put away the winter woolies. It's time to dust away the winter ash and lock the food-laden pantry door and welcoming new beginnings, clean slates, and fresh starts. Doesn't that sound absolutely perfect? Well, I suppose in an ideal world it is. That's what we are focusing on today. Spring has sprung, and with it, hopefully, many new opportunities, and as I said, coming out from the old and moving into the new. So we're going to have guests supporting it, and hopefully you're going to get yourself a piece of pen and paper, because they're going to be factual bits of advice that you can use to help declutter and clean out your life. I would like to welcome our syndication partners in Joburg, Eldo's FM, Chai FM, Port Alfred, Kawi FM, also West Coast FM in Namibia, 90.3 MC in Plet, Knysna FM, Wild Coast FM in East London, and Bay FM in PE. Great to have you on board. I welcome you to Conversations with Niki. I encourage you to go to the website, Conversations with Niki, Niki spelled N-I-K-I, because all the podcasts are put onto that website. So if you have missed any of the shows in the past, or if you have to miss part of the show today, this show will be podcast in a few days' time, so you'll get that on the website. Also, I'd love you to follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Seberini, or you can go along to the Facebook page, which is Niki Seberini Talk Show Host. So that will be absolutely fab to have you there as well. Now, another sister community radio station in the area is running a fundraiser, and this fundraiser is for a very good cause called Yad Aharon and Michael Tzedakah, and they're a food fund. And what they do is once a week they get together and they put food parcels together for people who literally do not have money to feed themselves. They do an incredible job. And a sister community radio station, and one of the stations that I syndicate to, Chai FM, is running a radiothon. And Radio Today, the station that I'm on right now, has wonderfully and very generously donated 500 Rand to the cause. And when I say sister and brother station, that's exactly what I mean. Because, you know, we cater to all communities, but what we are is we're the eyes and we're the ears and we're the voice for many people within the community. And so I think it's great for all community stations and also other commercial stations out there. You listening right now, if you would like to make a pledge, Radio Today has challenged you. It's for such a good cause. You can always dial 011 242 5555. That's 011 242 5555, and it's just helping those less fortunate than ourselves. Now, we were going to be talking to a nutritionist. Do we have her on the phone? No, we don't. Because really, I don't know about you, but in winter time, I seem to feel a lot better when I'm eating. It just fills the gap, you know. It comforts me. Eating lovely soup, perhaps a plate of pasta. The stodgy kind of food is what I fill myself up on. And as soon as spring arrives, we should really be getting into a state of looking at lighter food, perhaps detoxing. And even when we look at the word detoxing, are there any negative connotations attached to that word? Is there a safe way of detoxing? Perhaps we should be looking at that. Well, I was going to be chatting to Andrea Duplessis. We are having a problem. Do we have Andrea on the line? Fantastic. Andrea is the head of nutrition of Vital Health Foods. She's a registered dietitian, and she has a passion for healthcare through nutrition, natural remedies, and a healthy lifestyle. So I'm delighted to welcome Andrea onto the show. Hi, Andrea, and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks so much.
I know you're very busy, so thanks for your time. And I'm
Oh,
not
no,
sure,
it's an absolute
and
pleasure.
I'm not sure if you listened to the intro, Andrea, but winter has come to an end. Spring has sprung, and there are many people who see this as new beginnings and fresh starts. So I'm going to ask you very quickly, a detox, is that the way to enter spring? Is it safe to detox? What is detox all about?
Well, detox is basically cleansing the body, and it's something that your body does naturally anyway, but it doesn't always have the potential to do it thoroughly. If you look at, we have a liver, it's the body's most important organ to detoxify. We also have kidneys, and they, from day to day, obviously work to cleanse and eliminate toxins and waste products from our bodies. But if we don't drink enough water, if we don't sleep enough, and obviously if we don't follow a healthy diet, so if our diet contains things such as additives, caffeine, alcohol, etc., that the body needs to eliminate, it strains the body and the natural cleansing or detoxification process can't happen properly.
So should we be going on a detoxification diet? Because winter, we eat the stodgy food. We're not drinking as much water because it's cold, and I'd rather have a lovely cup of coffee, quite frankly.
Oh, definitely. I can relate to that as well. And I think a detox sometimes just helps to change the mindset, getting ready for a new season and perhaps changing the eating habits. The one thing is we should never use a detox as an excuse to have bad eating habits.
Mm-hmm.
But look, if you've not been on your best eating plan and you want to make a change, it really helps. And a few tips I'd love to share to get that right is there are various detox diets. Some you get something extreme like a water fast. Now that is something where you only drink water for a specified number of days.
Gee, that is very extreme.
Yes, so that sort of thing can be dangerous because you will definitely be lacking nourishment that you need from day to day. So I would say medical supervision is probably indicated there, especially if you have diabetes. I mean, that's something that would be completely unacceptable. So your doctor would tell you can't do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of normal circumstances that would warrant a water fast. Now, the types of detox diet that I would normally recommend is very simple. It's eliminating processed food. So anything that is processed in a packet with additives, added sugar, starches, refined starches also, beverages with caffeine, sugar, etc. So trying to eat a very healthy, natural diet consisting of raw vegetables and fruits. If you want to do vegetable juices, that's also another way of getting more vegetables into your body, and drinking water. Or, great news is that rooibos tea counts as water, provided you don't put lots of sugar and milk in it.
Great. Okay. Well, that's always good. But how long can you do something, or how long should you do something like this?
Well, if you do a sort of a detox diet consisting of fruits and vegetables, you can do that quite for at least a week, I would say. The one element that you would be missing out on there greatly is protein. So you'll see many detox diets are structured that after the third or fourth day, you introduce pulses, dried lentils and beans as an example, to add some protein. And also later on in the week, maybe you'll add some eggs and dairy products and perhaps some fish, steamed fish or something like that, just to ease your body into eating normal foods again, and also making up for the nutrients you have not been ingesting properly.
Are you going to go through into, are you going to feel the repercussions of not taking in the sugar and the caffeine? Will there be some type of withdrawal symptom?
It all depends on how bad the habits were before. I must say that if you, for instance, drink 1 cup of coffee a day and perhaps a total of 2 spoons of sugar per day, it's not going to make a great impact on how you feel to change that. But if you're used to drinking 5 cups of coffee a day and a lot more sugar and refined starches, your body will definitely notice it. The first symptoms you'll feel would be a headache, especially if you use lots of caffeine. And remember, caffeine we don't only find in coffee, it's also found in tea and in lots of energy drinks, cola drinks, and even in lots of over-the-counter painkillers and cold medicines. So stopping that would definitely result in a caffeine withdrawal headache. The remedy for that is just drink lots of water to help your body eliminate the caffeine, and to stay hydrated, because being dehydrated also can contribute to headaches.
Of course, with the sun rising early and it's warmer, you see more people out on the streets, and now they're going to be exercising more. Would you encourage people to exercise while going on a detox diet?
Well, most certainly not if it's a very extreme diet that is severely calorie restricted. Remember, detox does not indicate a small quantity of food. You could be on a cleansing diet consisting of raw fruits and vegetables and consume lots of food that can contribute to your energy intake. So if you're going to restrict your energy intake, you need to take it easy with the exercise. Don't push up the intensity and the duration too high. Sort of listen to your body. And also, if you have any if you suffer with any medical conditions, so in other words, if you have high blood pressure, low blood pressure, diabetes, any condition that may affect your energy balance, your body's ability to control blood sugar or blood pressure, it's not advised.
And last question, Andrea, is there any vitamin or supplement or mineral we should be taking which will complement a detox diet?
Definitely. There's a fantastic herb called milk thistle that you find in lots of these liver rescue type of products to help your liver cleanse the body. Mm-hmm. And milk thistle is used in medical environments as well to help with eliminating toxins and poisons from your body. By the same token, it can help to eliminate the effects of overindulging on rich foods and alcohol. So it's something that supports your liver. It helps your liver to do its job properly. And that is particularly important also for people that use prescription medication chronically that may strain the liver. It's often good to take a milk thistle liver rescue type of product to help your body to eliminate those substances.
Okay, that's great. Can you overdose on milk thistle? Can you take too much of it?
You can probably, but one needs to take quite a high dose to get the desired effect.
Okay.
So what they do is they design the product specifically at a therapeutic dose. So if you buy a packaged product that contains milk thistle, it will give you clear instructions of how much to take, and that is designed to give you the optimal results. And it would be wasteful to take more.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you for joining us and giving us a few tips and hints on how to detox and get ready for spring and, of course, summer.
It's a pleasure, and good luck for everybody for making those changes for us getting ready for spring.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good luck. I agree with that. Sometimes that is what it takes. Well, it takes a lot of courage, I think, to look at your diet and say, I'm making a change, because to let go of all those lovely stodgy foods and those processed foods and those refined sugars is not easy. But I think that the result is well worth it. So that's milk thistle, if you wanted me just to repeat that, to help with the detoxing of the liver. And that was Andrea du Plessis, head of nutrition of Vital Health Foods. Well, we're moving on. We've looked at the physical aspect of helping our body and decluttering. And I have the queen of decluttering in the studio. In fact, it's such a treat to have her. And you're going to be very excited by my guest, because she is going to be giving you step-by-step processes and ideas of how to declutter. And declutter means looking in your cupboards, and instead of looking away in horror because you simply can't face it, it's living lighter and it's living larger. And also she looks at the emotion part of decluttering and the physical aspect, the body, the physical and the emotion as well. So I'd like to welcome into the studio Kate Emmerson, who has released a book called Clear Your Clutter with Kate Emmerson. So, Kate, welcome. Lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Niki. Thanks for inviting me.
So, Kate, you are the diva of helping people declutter their lives.
Absolutely, and
so
it really is.
How did you become that?
Oh God, that's a really long story. So I cover some of that in the book. But I guess in my 20s, I was an aromatherapist and reflexologist. So that gave me a love of our body, a little bit like Andrea was talking about. And then I studied life coaching, but that was sort of back-ended on psychology at university. So the coaching is all the emotional stuff, and I've studied NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, and emotional freedom technique. So really just being able to help people understand the deeper ramifications of clutter. Because the stuff that we see, whether it's kind of how it's manifesting in our bodies or in our space around us, is really just a reflection of what's going on inside. So I'm not a typical organizer in that, yes, I do come in all guns blazing with my team and will help sort out a space, but it's actually about, well, what's really going on? So why is the stuff piling up? Why is the desk a mess? Because it's never just stuff. There's always a bigger picture to the stuff.
Okay.
So
it's
I
an
really
outward manifestation.
Yeah,
okay.
I really like the whole picture. We're complex, interesting creatures, and our spaces reflect that. So yeah, my motto is to help people live lighter, and that means letting go. And my definition of clutter, because the dictionary is interesting, it talks about chaos, mess, too much stuff in a space, being a little bit overcrowded. But my definition is anything or anyone, yes, including those husbands or girlfriends out there, that no longer serves you. So that becomes a different way of looking at it. So
that changes everything.
Exactly.
Really.
So, and some people, when I'm, chatting to audiences, they say, "Oh no, Kate, that makes it sound so superficial." And just suddenly today, you no longer serve me, so off you go, out with the dirty dishwater. But it's not. It's about being honest, and like you were saying just now, about having courage to look at your life from every single aspect and go, is this serving me? And the emotional stuff is the harder, trickier stuff. It's a little bit sticky in our bodies. And it's kind of going, well, does this belief serve me? Does this person serve me? Does this emotion or habit? You're talking about body habits, about detoxing your body. Those are habits that we have which are actually emotional clutter that are now creating body and physical clutter in our, so that we're a bit stagnant and stuck. So it really is it's a whole picture. It's beautiful.
Listen, I find that question very difficult. Does this serve me? I don't think it's easy to answer that.
No, it's not. And that's why it does require courage. So often that's why people need someone like me or a really brutally honest friend, So you spoke about wardrobes, and this is for chicks and guys. We look at the stuff and we kind of go, oh, I wore that last week. Oh, I'm sure I'll fit back into that. Oh, I don't know if I want to let guys pay too much money.
That's for the after the detox diet, that particular dress.
And, we con ourselves because we don't want to face what's really going on. And so it's so easy to run away. Or just go and hide, or just, maybe eat some more stuff, or drink too much alcohol, or go shopping when we actually don't really have space. And, the amount of times we know it, so out there they're going to be laughing. How many clothes to have tags on still? And we're filling the emotional hole by either filling our space around us, so you can just see what I've done with my hand, we fill it up, or we fill our bodies up, and we're terrified of space. So that's the thing. It's like it's going back to nature. This is what spring is always about. It starts on Sunday. I believe we've got a cold front coming, so I don't know what.
I'm ignoring that.
Me too.
Actually.
But the energy is always there because it shifts. Winter is more about hibernation, going within, sort of being a little bit more introspective. Spring is about that pop of energy, that possibility, those buds. We've seen it. Jasmine's one of my favorite flowers, and it's bursting out there. And we're the same. It's almost like, how do we burst outside of ourselves? And if you haven't done a body detox, it's you could be a little bit stagnant and sludgy and feeling a little bit stuck. And one of the questions, people always ask me, where do I start? And I say, start wherever feels easiest for you. So right now, someone out there might find, what Andre said, well, that will be the easiest for me. I'm going to start with milk thistle and drinking more water. That could be easy for me. For someone else, that might be the hardest place to start. But they might go, I can start with my cupboard. And the other person might be going, I could start with something emotional. And wherever you start, it will be your entry point, and then it starts triggering to the other areas. So that's why I do a step-by-step process where I just say, let's start here, and we move day by day by day, just a little bit at a time, because it is overwhelming.
Because the important thing is to start to not lose the enthusiasm, because there is this energy of rebirth in the air at the moment with spring, and you want to go with it, but then ordinary everyday life just kicks in, and then we have these wonderful ideas about clearing out a cupboard or starting a detox diet. I think getting to the emotional stuff is a lot harder to go there. It's a lot more difficult.
Yes.
And then things just change,
Well, we go back to the excuses again, you see. So we let our habits kind of creep up and be bigger than us. And so one of the things that I do, I'm starting on Monday. We're starting a sort of a month course, so 28 Secrets to Spring Clean Your Life, and it includes a book and a teleseminar, and it's about helping people just keep going on no matter what. People always say to me, I don't have time, and I'm like, really? How much TV do you watch? It's like, if you actually left home a little bit early, if you could, maybe you'd save some time in traffic. There's always ways that we can save time. If you really want to do it, you'll find the time. And I just ask people to do an hour a day. And if you sit in front of that telly, like pretty much 99% of the population does, you have an hour a day. But the thing is, going a step before that is asking your why. So why do you want to clear? So if you're looking at your cupboards, your home, your office, your emails, because that's a big one for people nowadays,
absolutely.
You have to have a bigger why. So it's like saying, I'm going to go to gym 3 days a week. Well, that's not really a big why. If you're suddenly going to be climbing Kilimanjaro in 2 months' time, Monday morning comes, your lazy butt's in bed, you're like, oh, I don't really feel like going to gym. If you know you're going up Kilimanjaro, you've got a bigger why, which will motivate you to get out and do it. So before we do any clutter clearing, I get people to figure out what their why is. So I'm letting go of XYZ, whatever it is for you, in order to manifest something else. So the something else could be a new relationship, a new client, a new holiday, like something different, like a new way of being. So that when you get stuck, it's like, well, I know why I'm doing this.
Much greater purpose.
Yeah. And it's more purposeful and aligned rather than, because nobody really, well, except perhaps me, gets a kick out of clearing out your clutter. Because it's like, all those feelings come up of why have you got it? And, oh, I shouldn't have done this. And we judge and we blame and we go into that victim mode.
We don't want to let it go.
And we don't want to let it go.
Sentimental.
So that's the other thing on the other end of the question is letting go of anything that doesn't serve you. 3 simple questions. I build on them, but they're absolutely simple. Do I love it? Okay, love it. Not like it. So it's like I have one pen, and because and my mother calls me clumsy Kate because I lose things, I drop things, I'll spill food on me. But I was given a pen for my 40th birthday, and I've now had it for 5 years because it's special and I love it. It gives me a kick every time I use it. Whereas if it's just a normal Bic, I don't give a damn about it. So do I love it?
Would you throw away an ordinary Bic?
No, I would recycle it or give it to a charity.
Yeah, but what if I need it? But carry on.
So do I use it? Okay, so do you use, I had someone post on my online community today and she said, I think I could be Walton's. She said, because I've just done this exercise and I have 50 big pens. So I've put them in the recycle box. So there, you and her are aligned. But do I use it? Because so often things are just sitting around and they're just taking up space and we're conning ourselves. And then the more important one is, does it add value to my life? Does it really add value and energy to my life? So when I walk in or I get into my car, do I feel like zingy and uplifted? Okay. When it comes to clothing, yeah, we know the rule. Like, have I worn it in the last 6 to 12 months? Unless it's a very precious item that maybe, like a beautiful wool coat or that little black dress or a pair of exceptional shoes for a guy. And when it comes to, say, work and filing, it's like, does it add value to my productivity? So when people are looking at paper, a lot of people are now switching from paper to online filing on the cloud. So it's like, does it add to my productivity or not? And if not, can I let it go? Why? So I've got more time and energy to be present. Because that's really what it's about for me. It's kind of a spiritual practice. So clutter stops you from being present. It stops you from being in the moment because you're so busy being pulled by all these different things, and our minds are full and our emotions are full, and we're not actually clear. We don't have that space in our bodies and in our heart.
I have to say that when I have done a spring clean, or when I do clean up my desk and do a whole lot of filing, the feeling is just, it's a tonic. It really is a tonic. I mean, I feel lighter and I walk around with a smile on my face. And when I walk into my office and my desk is an absolute mess and I haven't thrown things away, I find I can spiral into this dark hole and all of a sudden the papers just pile up. Within a short period of time, I'm lost.
Yeah, and that's true for a lot of people. And the flip is also true. So some people, there's that, I need creative chaos around me. So that's always an argument I get in terms of people in their offices. And what I say is that if everything that you own has a home, so from your paperclip to your big pen to all of your papers, it's like where your will is. You know where your insurance policy is. You know where the latest client file is. And the point is I get the same when I'm suddenly getting creative, when I'm writing or I'm working on a business plan. My desk does get really messy and a bit chaotic because I start getting a little bit frenetic and the energy starts piling up. However, at the end of it, I know where it all goes back to so that I start again for the next project on a clean slate. So, those creative, chaotic types can have that sort of fullness of energy. But it's like, how do you bring it back to some semblance of clarity? And then you can create chaos. So it's clarity and chaos and kind of balancing and harmonizing those two.
I hear you. You say in your book, face your clutter demons.
Yes.
And you've got this questionnaire. So you look at it in terms of physical clutter and then body clutter, and then there's the emotional clutter, which I always think is just so much more difficult.
Yes.
And you're asking questions, and you've range from 1 to 10, and it's all very clear there. And what I love about the book is that it's step by step.
Yes.
It's not overwhelming.
Yes. And I think that is a trick because when I come into people's homes, it's literally like those TV shows, and I'm pitching for a TV show at the moment, but it gets so big and it gets worse before it gets better.
Have you seen those kind of homes,
Yeah,
just by the way?
Absolutely. And that's
why you can't see the floor.
Yeah, and South Africa needs a show to kind of say this is what's going on. But I really do believe in the power of the human spirit to be able to do it on their own. So that's the way I've written the book, kind of working from that belief system that actually you can do it. Here's just a little nudge along the way. And all you have to do, and I start people off on their bedside table, because a bedside table is important, it's sacred, it's your very personal space. Often your partner doesn't go in there, often your housekeeper doesn't go in there, your kids don't. It's sacred. And the thing is, it's the last thing you see when you close your eyes, and normally the first thing when you wake up. And you sleep next to it for 6 to 8 hours. And it's a little job. But when it's done, it's like, okay, if that's what clutter clearing is, I can carry on with you, Kate. And then the next day we do a little bit more. And then I interplay that with the body clutter. So like just teaching people from my aromatherapy and reflexology, building on what you were saying earlier.
The detoxing.
A little bit, but not crazy like you're going to a hydro, just principles. And one of the biggest ones is water. And then in the last week, then we switched to the emotional clutter. But what's interesting is, because I'm always talking about the psychological principles, people are getting it because they understand instinctively that their space is their heart and soul. So the emotional stuff starts shifting anyway. So by the time we get to the last week, it's already started kind of oozing out of them. They know what it is that they're doing, and like the feedback comes in before we've even started working specifically on the emotional clutter. So the step-by-step works because everybody can do step-by-step. Not everyone can do all guns blazing, let's do it in 3 days. Whereas everyone can start small.
It's a process, and we can all do it. I'm going to talk about emotional clutter in just a moment. If you have just tuned in, welcome. Conversations with Niki Seberini with you. I have Kate Emmerson in the studio. And of course, Conversations with Niki is sponsored by Study Apps. And statistics have shown that students who do not review what they have learned will forget 70% within an hour and 84% within 48 hours. So the key to effective long-term learning is testing. And Study Apps is all about revision and testing, and it's done in an incredibly integrative and interesting way. So go to the website, learn more, studyapps.co.za. So Kate, last question, and there were so many more questions that I had for you, but time's just running. Emotional clutter.
Yes.
You spoke about husbands, friends, girlfriends who don't serve you any longer. So, how easy or difficult is it to go deep?
It's the hardest one. It really is. And I think that's why we exist here as humans. We're here to kind of find our path, find our way. We are complex. It's about communication. It's about boundaries. And so one of the things, it's about having courageous conversations. You were talking about that earlier. And I say emotional clutter is the stuff that kind of makes you feel small and makes you feel bad about yourself and makes you kind of feel a little bit sick in your solar plexus and makes you feel sad. So anything, and I always say to people, ask yourself a question. And mine is a little bit of an odd one that I've been sharing this month. And it's, am I willing and ready to die today? Because if I'm able to
What a question.
If I'm able to answer yes to that, in terms of a spirit way, I don't mean a sort of depressed, suicidal way. What it means is that I have no regrets. There are no conversations that I really wished I'd had. So it's a way of kind of pulling yourself into alignment and kind of going, are there some things that I need to say? Are there some conversations I need to have with bosses, with friends, with, husbands, family? I'm busy doing that with my own family at the moment. There are some conversations I need to have. And they're not easy because we go into patterns. I'm the younger sister, so I go into playing small and being the little one. And, all of those things come out, and we're designed to expand. And so the emotional clutter is about staking our claim, being the best that we can be, honoring ourselves, but not at the expense of anyone else, and just finding our own space and our place in the world. And it's difficult, and yet we have to do it. It's like that there is no other way other than actually to tackle it head on. Because if we don't, it gets bigger. It takes on a life of its own, and it consumes us. And then the thing is that what happens if there's a conversation that you need to have, you will be playing it over and over and over again, and you'll get stressed, and that can become illness, or you'll start filling your space and it'll become physical clutter because actually you don't know how to have the emotional conversations. And it is the hardest in terms of Yeah, because people always have to put themselves on the line, and courageous conversations have risks attached to them, and often we let the risks kind of outweigh the potential reward, and we just go, no, I can't have it. Let me let sleeping dogs lie. Let me pretend it doesn't exist, and yet it's eating away at you. So it's hard, and yet the rewards are immense and incredible, because if you're not actually facing them, you're eating up the time of your life, and you're not being present, and you're not being true and honest to yourself. So once they're done...
Do you live by these rules?
I attempt to, Nikki. I mean, I'm human, So like everyone else, flawed, lovely human being, that I do. I attempt to. And I'm always willing.
Hard work,
of course
all
it is.
The time.
But it's the other side of it is always better. So, there's always the relief of, wow, like I feel better. And yes, sometimes the risks do come in. You tell someone that you no longer love them. I want a divorce. I don't like working here. You're mean. You're a bully. I stole money from you. All of those things. But the cost to your spirit of not doing it is immense. And I think that's the biggest thing in it. And then it becomes just like this. It just weighs you down and keeps you stuck and stagnant, and you don't live light. So yes, I really do attempt to live my what I teach. And like everyone else, it comes up for me every single day, and it's a step-by-step process for me too.
Well, Kate, I mean, we've only just scratched the surface, unfortunately. And if you're listening right now, if it's resonating, you need to get this book, and you need to begin today. Not tomorrow, not another time. We can't live in a time of I will, but I have to do X, Y, and Z. So Clear Your Clutter with Kate Emmerson, and it's easy. I've gone through it. You ask questions. You can interact with you, Kate.
Yes, I have an online community.
Which is fantastic. You have people who have written letters and their testimonials, people sharing their intimate stories. Where can people get their hands on this book?
They can either get it from our website, so we'll just post it off the next day, which is www.kate-emerson.com. And pretty much all good bookstores have it, so the exclusive CNA, PNA, but obviously, it depends on each store. Kalahari has got it. It's an ebook version. It's an Afrikaans, Remyo Rommel Op. So it's really out there, English to Afrikaans book and ebook.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Lovely having you in the studio. So that's decluttering. And so, spring has sprung. And if you are going to look at, from a physical aspect, look at maybe detoxing, if you're going to look into your cupboards or your office or your space, your living space, and declutter there, and if you're going to have the courage to go even deeper and really look at relationships and look at yourself, I wish you the very best of luck, and I wish you lots of strength on this journey. Now we're going to take a break, and after the break, an iconic singer is going to be sharing her story with us, because she had the courage to face her demons and she hit rock bottom, and I'm talking about PJ Powers, so stay tuned.
Hi, my name is S.V. Prinsloo, and I'm the HOD of IT Integration at Bridwin Preparatory School in Melrose. We started using study apps about 6 months ago and have seen astonishing results. We were quite amazed to see how quickly the kids have been able to use study apps and the benefits it has shown with regards to reinforcing what they've already learned inside the classroom. I would highly recommend study apps for any school.
Studyapps.co.za. Well, welcome back. And if you have just tuned in, this is Conversations with Niki. I'm Niki Seberini, and it's fabulous to be with you. Once again, I'd like to just welcome our syndication partners, and that's Kawi FM, Eldo's FM, Chai FM, West Coast FM in Namibia, 90.3 MC in Plet, Neisner FM, Wild Coast FM in East London, and Bay FM in PE. Welcome, welcome. So it does feel like we have been in a rather cold, dark cave, and the sun is getting warmer, it's getting lighter earlier, and if you look very closely on the trees, you're starting to notice the buds, and if you inhale and you live in Gauteng, then you're going to smell that which just symbolizes the beginning of spring, and that is the sweet, heady smell of jasmine. So that's really what we're focusing on this week. Spring has sprung. Well, it certainly is about to. And I just wonder, we've been talking about decluttering with Kate Emmerson, and we've been talking about how to clean up your life, how to clean up in a physical way, how to clean up in an emotional way. We've been looking at nutrition, and we can carry that through in all areas of our lives. I have such a wonderful guest in the studio. I'm so excited to have her in the studio. And I think it's such a brilliant time for her to be coming when we're talking about spring and new beginnings and coming out into the light. I'm talking about PJ Powers, who is the singer-songwriter who we have known and carried in our hearts for so many years. We've all danced and celebrated with her. And she's been very quiet for a while. And I'm so excited because she's just released a brand new album. So she's decided to come onto the show to tell us about that, but more importantly, to tell us where she was and how she's come out into the light. So PJ, welcome, and thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
So Destiny
Yes.
is the name of this album.
Yeah, it is. Destiny is the name of the album, and it's really this particular track. You know, every track on the album, I think, will speak to somebody personally. In the past, a lot of my inspiration has come from what's been going on around me, particularly in my early days in the struggle, and all of that. You know, those kind of things. My influences and my inspiration came from what's going on around me. With this album, it is absolutely I got goosebumps at the thought of how personal it is, because every single there really is a keyhole into my soul in this album, because everything comes from the inside out.
And why have you gone so personal?
Because I have a lot to say. I have an enormous amount to talk about. I have been sober for 4 years. I went into a very dark black hole. I got into the boxing ring with alcohol, and anyone out there that thinks you can win, you're wrong, you will lose. And so you know, I haven't released an album or a new CD for 6 to 7 years. I did something with Jabba.
Is that why, PJ? Because of the drinking and being in that space?
It was I was incapable of doing it, but it was the drinking. It was just being absolutely lost and not really knowing what my destiny is. And I think that we create our own destinies. We like to think we don't. We like to think that circumstance and this happening in the country and this happening in the rand falling and the this and da, particularly South Africans, we love to blame. But actually, at the end of the day, we are responsible for our journey on this earth. And it's in stark contrast with what I used to think prior to my sobriety. But I'm quite vehement about it now.
You describe it as this album as being a recovery from pain, emergence from a dark tunnel, reclaiming your life. Was there a turning point? Was there one defining moment that made you turn everything around?
Yeah, and what I think, you know, most of all, I want to help people, and this is the reason that I talk about this so openly, is when you do have that turnaround, you know, you don't see a white light and then everything's fine. That's the frightening thing about deciding to change your life. It happens slowly. In fact, on this album, there is a song called One Day at a Time. And we're so worried about what's going to happen next week and tomorrow, and we're so busy looking over the hill that we don't actually enjoy the present. That everything I've ever done in my life has led me to me sitting here with you today talking. And it's a wonderful thing to be present. It's the first time in my life that I'm present.
Do you have to work on that all the time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because isn't it momentary? You hold it and it just sort of slips through your fingers.
You have to remind yourself all the time, because I mean, I have a diary and I have shows planned and holidays planned and things planned for the future. So you can't sit here going, oh well, I'll wake up tomorrow and find out what tomorrow is going to hold. But I'm talking about from a feelings point of view. You know, there is no point in worrying. There is first of all, we know that 80% of the stuff we worry about doesn't happen. But there is no point in being sucked into that downward spiral about what's going to happen next week and ruin your today. You know, for what? And my defining moment, which was your question, I talk a lot, was I had, been a social drinker. I started drinking very late. I was 26 when I had my first alcoholic beverage, so, I mean...
That is late.
It is late. I was very focused as a youngster. I wasn't interested in anything to do with drugs or alcohol, anything mind-altering. And PJ Powers is an extremely functional person, is a very confident person.
Well, you knew what you wanted to be from a very young age.
Oh, from 3 I knew.
You had an absolute direction.
And Tandega, as a lot of the country calls me, is very focused, but what I didn't realize was I arrived at this point in my life where Penelope, which is what Penelope PJ stands for, Penelope Jane, I'd left her behind, when I'd gone on my journey of success, and I crossed over from social drinking into alcoholic behavior. In the last 2 years of my life I spent in bed drinking. I just drank to pass out. I only drank to escape. I mean, I could have taken pills, I wanted out. And then I lost my house, I lost my car, I lost everything. And
was it rock bottom? You hit
rock
bottom?
Yeah. And I was staying with my sister, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had terrible shakes, and she'd sort of washed her hands of me, but what she had done was taken all the alcohol out of her house, and so I drank my hairspray.
Wow.
A Flex hairspray. Well, it wasn't mine, it was my sister's actually. And in the morning I went to the Fourways Life Hospital, and I had 2 alcoholic seizures. And when I came round from the second one, I heard my sister saying to the doctor, "Is she going to live?" And the doctor said, "We're doing everything we can to save her." And it was at that...
You heard that?
I remember hearing that, and I remember thinking to myself, I actually don't want to die or escape. I do want to live my life. But there's no ways I could live it the way I was living. And I entered a 12-step program after 5 rehabs, mind you. I'm normally a quick learner. I was a very slow learner on this one.
But as you've said, you don't just see the light and it stays there.
It doesn't.
It shifts.
Yeah, and then, you're terrified. And slowly, one day at a time,
It's so incredibly
life
brave.
becomes livable, and then it gets glorious, and I don't regret 1 minute of the journey, because I wouldn't be where I am today without that experience.
Right. Hence the recovery from pain.
Yeah.
Out from the dark tunnel.
Yes.
Yeah. Going back to the drinking, I mean, you were talking about the Penelope that got left behind with all the success. Because in the 80s, 90s, you had this tremendous success. I mean, we go back to your youth. You knew from a youngster that you were going to sing. You put on concerts all the time. And when you charged people, you gave that money to charity. You had such a strong sense of who you were in the world, how you saw the world.
I had a very strong
sense
sense that I was going to make a difference, and I had a very strong sense from a very young age that what was happening in this country was wrong. I felt uncomfortable. I couldn't put my finger on it in the beginning, but I felt uncomfortable because I knew that the system, it had to be wrong. That people could not, it didn't make sense that we were separated by color to me. It never ever made any sense. And I was very fortunate that my parents agreed with me.
So how did you reconcile that as you were growing up?
I didn't. I grew up in confusion because, there was no reconciling it, They don't put 11-year-olds in jail, although those people probably would have. But, there was nothing I could do. My hands were tied. But the minute that I had a voice, I used it to its full potential. And I'm one of those South Africans, white South Africans, that's very lucky that can say I haven't stayed in my country. I have lived in my country. I've seen every corner of it. I've seen every township. I have been accepted by every group of our country's vast population.
Well, you sang with Steve Kokana in 1983. That hit, Feel So Strong. That was at a point when apartheid was so strong, so incredibly oppressive, and that was a boundary that you just kicked that out of the way, and you had this tremendous success.
We toured Europe with that.
Exactly.
And Feel So Strong was enormous for 3 years. It was huge. There was no point in bringing out another song because it roller coasted. But the SABC, still, Steve and I joined hands and held them above our heads. And I had to change the lyric of that song. Because...
How?
Because when I wrote it, it was... never thought I'd find a friend quite like you. I'd written, I never thought I'd find a love quite like you.
And you
quite like yours. And the SABC would not play it. And we were the first across the colour bar. You know, I mean, I find this so difficult to believe that this has been in my lifetime, my adult lifetime. We changed lyrics, and we...
You were saying you were holding hands.
Yeah, we were holding hands, and we put our hands above our heads, and they were so childish. They cut our hands off, so it looks like we're not wearing hands. The video, the last slide, is just that it ends like at the end of our arms. You cannot see us touching.
That is ridiculous. But you were banned for a while, weren't you?
Yes, I was banned in the late 80s, 90s. Yeah.
What happened with that? In Zimbabwe, you were singing a concert.
I went to perform at the Children on the Frontline concert in Zimbabwe with Sally Mugabe, who was the instigator of this concert, who was a wonderful woman. I mean, her husband's gone off the rails ever since she died. She was a really wonderful human being. And it was with Maxi Priest and Salif Keita. And, of course, I met my idol there, which was Miriam Makeba. And a picture was taken of myself. Muzzy was still banned at that time, Miriam. And it came back here, and the SABC said, we will not play you. And, you know, as an artist, not to be played by the national broadcaster when there were not satellite stations in those days was almost crippling.
How long was that for?
I was banned for 2 years.
And how did that impact on your career?
Hugely, but fortunately what had happened, you see, everything happens for a reason. This is the reason we mustn't panic. As that guy said in the the Great Exotic Marigold Hotel, everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. What happened was I'd been embraced by Black South Africa. And whilst the SABC wouldn't play me, I was held buoyant in the townships all around the country. I did huge live performances to 50,000, 60,000 people every week. And that provided me with a platform to continue to play my music so people could continue to hear the new stuff and they'd buy it. But to sell records without radio is almost impossible. And we managed to.
But being a white female in that time, you've been banned, you're going to townships, you're performing. Did you ever feel that there was a huge burden and a huge responsibility for you to do more, singing your songs, but becoming more and more political?
No, I didn't. I live by my conscience. People have said I've been political. I'm not political. I'm very irreverent, and I'm guided by my conscience, and I'm not fearful. Margaret Sangana taught me that many years ago. She said, "There's nothing to fear but fear," and so I spoke out very, very, very clearly, you know.
Without fear.
Without fear. Look, there were times when, I had a brick come through my window, and I wasn't very popular with the whites in this country at that time, but I didn't care.
Well, if you have just tuned in, it's lovely, lovely to have you. It's Conversations with Niki, and I'm Niki Seberini, and I have the wonderful PJ Powers in the studio sharing her story and talking about her new album, Destiny. And in a moment, we are going to play the single, the first release from that album, which is, in fact is called Destiny. We'll continue listening to these fabulous stories. Now, Conversations with Niki is sponsored by Study Apps, and studies have shown that students retain 50% more of the information that they've learned if they take practice tests. So that's the key, really. And Study Apps provides all the practice tests that any student could ever ask for. It's a very interactive way of learning and practicing. It's stimulating. And how Study Apps works is you just download it onto an iPad or onto a tablet. If you want to find out more, just go visit their website, studyapps, that's one word, .co.za. So before we play the track, PJ, I wanted to, because you've sung in front of the Queen of England, the King of Spain, the Queen of Netherlands.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela and you have had ongoing relations.
He's my man.
We'll go back to that. You know, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, all these incredible things. And then in 1995, you were asked to sing this fabulous song, which did incredibly well all over. And that was the song for the World Cup, 1995. And I think there are very few South Africans old enough to remember, you know, that was just such a pivotal moment in South African history. And you were so much a part of that. Try and describe the build-up and what it was like to be a part of that.
Well, it was an amazing thing. First of all, I wasn't the first choice. I don't know who the first choice was, and I don't care. But
don't dwell on that.
But what happened was a person was chosen, and it was Madiba himself, who said, if anyone's going to represent this country along with Ladies with Black Mambazo, it has to be Thandeka, it has to be PJ Powers. So, he's really looked after me through my career, right from, I have a letter from him from when he was still in prison. And
that was around the time when you were banned?
Yeah, and he's guided me enormously. And, it was an incredible experience. What I didn't realize at the time, when I was part of Playing the Enemy and when I was part of Invictus, what I didn't realize at the time was that I was actually, I was aware of what an enormous statement it was when Nelson Mandela walked out onto the stadium with a Springbok jersey. Who would have thought a Robben Island prisoner would wear the absolute emblem of apartheid, was the Springbok rugby jersey, and he walked out, and so I was aware that something was incredible was happening during that month in our country. What I didn't realize was just how political that move was, and just how orchestrated, and just how behind the scenes it had been. It was absolute strategy. It was Nelson Mandela at his finest in terms of bridging the gap. He seized that moment and he turned it into an enormous political statement, which I only realized when I was interviewed for the documentary. Did it make sense to me? And it put me on the map in every rugby playing nation in the world.
And of course, when the movie Invictus came out as well, it was in the movie.
Yeah, it was in the movie.
There was this renaissance, this resurrection once again.
Yeah. I actually worked with Clint Eastwood and Matt Damon and the gorgeous Morgan Freeman, and it was an amazing experience.
And it must have been. So to be a part of all that, the struggle, being banned, singing with people that you perhaps would never have been able to sing with before, having this wonderful relationship with Nelson Mandela, and then moving into a democratic South Africa where things kind of settled. Well, I suppose we can question what settled is.
Yeah.
But the struggle was no longer there. People were changing.
We've got a brand new struggle now that I'm up for.
Yeah, exactly. And so much more, international artists coming and bridging the gaps in connection and technology. Was that hard for you? I'm going back to the drinking now. I'm going back to you hitting the rock bottom. What did you feel at that point that, okay, how do I fit into this new South Africa?
No, I into the new South Africa, I knew my place. You must remember that, as I said to you, PJ Powers and Thandeka were very confident about. I knew my place. I knew the loyalty, and I knew what I was about. But it was quite, we had a common enemy in those days, and whether it was Chico Twala or Sipho Hotstix Mabuse or Ladies with Black Mambazo or Brenda Fassie, myself, it didn't matter. We all had one thing in common. It didn't matter how different we were, and it didn't care where we came from, how much money we had. We had one common thing, and that was that we hated the regime. And so that was incredibly unifying. And when that breaks, you don't miss it, because obviously this is what you've been fighting for. But when those chains break, it is a little bit kind of like, okay, my anchor's, but I found my anchor quite quickly because of the World Cup rugby. And but what I had done was, when you verbalize who I've sung in front of and this incredible love, I'm busy writing a book. Well, I'm not writing it. Marion Tam is writing it for me. There will be a book delivered early next year.
Yay.
What I did was I ashamedly took it for granted. I was so busy getting success, and I never took my relationship with Nelson Mandela for granted, but the other stuff was, okay, I've done that, now what else can I do? I've done that. You tend to throw these achievements over your shoulder. You don't even take time to hold the award.
Is that part of the present moment?
Yeah, you don't take time to, you get the award, right. You put it down and you go for the next one. And it's such a shame, because, and then eventually what happened was I didn't write a hit. And that was an aha moment for me.
That must have been so difficult.
I said, why aren't these people buying this record? And the truth was, they didn't like it. And of course I'd spent all my money having a great time, and I was a people pleaser, so I was flying my friends around the world and around the country, and I woke up one morning and I literally had nothing, and I couldn't cope with that. Because what I was left with was Penelope. And I didn't know who this person was. I was very in touch with who the famous money-making PJ Powers machine was. I didn't know how to relate to Penelope. I didn't like that person at all.
So how did you get to relate to that Penelope?
Well, I didn't. I picked up a Smirnoff bottle.
You avoided it as long as
I
you possibly
avoided it for as long as I could.
But she kept knocking.
Yeah, and it just wouldn't go away, you know. But I'm talking serious. I was at the end. I was drinking 3 or 4 bottles of vodka a day.
Sure. That's a huge amount.
Or
but
anything.
But did you realize? I mean, you and we spoke about that moment when you landed up in hospital.
Oh, but I realized that I was in trouble.
Did you realize?
I realized that. You know, my.
So you weren't denying it. I mean, you weren't saying, "No, I don't have a problem."
Oh, no. Of course, I was denying it. There's not an alcoholic in this town that doesn't lie to themselves, or in the world that doesn't lie to themselves. But you know, I was depressed, or if I didn't drink, then I'll stop drinking. Then I'll drink red wine, or I'll stop. I tried every permutation in the book. You know, until eventually I had to stand up one day and say, my name's PJ and I'm an alcoholic.
What was that like for you?
Liberating.
Was it?
Yeah. I come from the family, when I told my mother I was going to rehab, she said, that's fine, just don't let my ladies I play cards with know. So that was the kind of support.
But listen, but that's huge. And also being PJ Powers and, you know, coming from where you came from, to stand up in front of people and say that takes a lot of courage. I mean, I think it takes courage for any individual to do it. But you had so much more to lose, really.
Yeah, I do have more to lose. And, but, you know, I lied to myself for a lot of my adult youth. I ignored my insecurities. I told them to go. I didn't pay homage to any of my inner emotions. And so that's what I do now. And if there are people out there that don't want to employ me or don't try whatever because of this, well, you know, more fool them.
Well, how many people listening now who perhaps are in trouble or who know someone who is in trouble because they can't admit that they have a drinking problem, who may make a decision to move to the next step? And I think that you've always been this principled person with a very strong social conscience, and this is just an extension, I think.
Maybe, you know, I mean,
exposing yourself and putting yourself out there like this.
And I'm in a place of, you know, I would love to add to that education program that you said to me. What is it called? I'm going to phone them, study apps. You know, I think one of the most important things in life, I have a company called The Power of Appreciation, and you cannot be unhappy and be in a state of gratitude at the same time. You can't. It's impossible. It is humanly impossible to be in a state of appreciation and gratitude and be unhappy at the same time. It's like jumping in the water and not getting wet. It can't happen. And that's what we need to do in our country.
And it's
we need to look at more of what we do have and not what we don't have, because then we will be happier, and happy people create enormous miracles.
Are you not born that way? You see the glass as half full as opposed to half empty? Or is this something that you really can work on?
I just heard that on the radio. Somebody said, do we believe that South Africa's glass is half empty or half full? I thought, what a stupid question, because, you know, sorry to the journalist, but you know, a country isn't half full or half empty. It's the people in the country that are half full or half empty. And that's exactly what I'm saying about power of appreciation. You know, there are not a lot of people in this country that have nothing. There are people that have little, and there are people that have it much tougher than me, and I have it tougher than some other people. But nobody has nothing.
So, finally getting your head around putting another album together.
That took a while. I was nagged so much, you know, and the more people nagged me, the more I didn't want to do it. I was very fearful, very, very, very fearful. I still am. I think, I hope people like it, you know. I hope that they, you know, I mean, I try not to seek approval from, but you do, you know. I mean, this is, you put your heart.
Well, it's an outward expression.
Yeah, you know.
Of course.
I'm not the Iron Man, you know. But eventually, I sat down, and I'd been in a really destructive relationship, and I'd written a lot down, and I opened that book again, and I wrote Destiny in all of 20 minutes, and then the rest of the album followed, and it was done and dusted from a writing point of view in a month.
And you worked with Alistair.
Yes, Alistair Coakley.
I mean, you've been working with Alistair for years and years and years.
Alistair Coakley said my speech at my 21st, 5 years ago. But, you know, we have an amazing personal relationship,
An understanding.
and an
I'm sure.
understanding, and I trust him. Not only musically, I trust him with my heart, which is what this record is about. So he was the first and the most obvious choice, and I was extremely happy that he said yes, because he's a genius, actually.
And listening to the album?
You know that I don't have one of my other CDs, and that's the honest to God truth.
Why not?
Because I can't bear listening to myself.
Really?
I really can't bear listening to myself.
Why not?
I don't know, because I always hear,
You're too critical.
yeah, I think, oh, maybe I should have done that, hindsight. But strangely, and this is not just saying this, maybe it's my state of mind and my state of acceptance and all of that kind of stuff, is Destiny is a CD that I listen to a lot.
Well, we're going to be playing out with the track. This is the first single that's been released. And so before we say goodbye, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about this particular track? I mean,
This
you said
song-
you wrote it very quickly.
I wrote it very quickly. This song has, if you listen to the lyric in the verses, it's angry and sarcastic. It was born out of a personal stuff up, as we have in our lives.
Of course.
But the chorus, I'd like to appeal to everyone in South Africa to listen to the chorus, and it's, I'm going to be my destiny. I'm going to take my hand and lead me down the road to where I want to be. And that's what life's about.
Wonderful words.
It's about taking yourself to where you want to be.
Oh, wonderful. PJ Powers, Tandeka, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It has been
Thank
so
you.
wonderful
And
having
thanks
you
for
on
all
the
the
show.
support to all your listeners.
Looking forward to listening, and we're going to play the track right now. So I thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed the show, and I'm looking forward to being with you same time next week. From me, Niki Seberini. Goodbye.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you say to me, I was the one waiting here, and in the end I'm on my own. 'Cause I heard it before, that you would be leaving. You looked me in the eyes and lied to me, told me things were gonna be fine. Well, hey, I'm done. I'm gonna be my destiny. I'm gonna take my head and lead me down the road to where I want to be. Yes, I'm gonna be my destiny. I'm gonna look up now and shine and know that I create my own destiny. Well, just about now, your ears should be burning, and I feel a glow inside my soul to know that I'll no longer be the one who's hurting. Sometimes I wonder if you ever think of me. Well, here's the thing, you see, either way, it just no longer matters. 'Cause I'm gonna be my destiny. I'm gonna
Hi, my name is S.V. Prinsloo, and I'm the HOD of IT Integration at Bridwin Preparatory School in Melrose. We started using study apps about 6 months ago and have seen astonishing results. We were quite amazed to see how quickly the kids have been able to use study apps and the benefits it has shown with regards to reinforcing what they've already learned inside the classroom. I would highly recommend study apps for any school.
Studyapps.co.za. Conversations with Niki was brought to you by studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets.